What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I just wanted to discuss a few things that we learned the other week about Irish, as it has caused a bit of a concern within the community about whether Irish could actually end up being quite overpowered due to some of his specialist traits and gadgets. Now, I am a little bit slow to make this video. I was actually away for a few days right as this information all came out, and so I'm definitely a little bit behind, but now that I am back, I'm definitely keen to cover this topic because it is a pretty important topic to discuss in my opinion, as it could lead to some bigger issues than it initially seems. Before we get into it though, if you guys are new around here and you end up enjoying this video, then please do consider subscribing and turning on those notifications so that you don't miss out on any upcoming Battlefield content. There is plenty of exciting stuff on the way, but with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So around 2 weeks ago now, as you're watching this, we obviously got to see the Exodus short film from the Battlefield team, and in that short film we learned that Irish has returned and that he'll be a playable specialist within Battlefield 2042. We learned a little bit about what gadgets and traits he has as a character, and from this a lot of people in the community started to get a little bit worried about some potential balancing issues, and rightly so, because it is definitely worrying at face value. Now, to elaborate on what I'm talking about, we found out that Irish will actually have a trait called Veteran, and DICE described it as Irish's Veteran trait allows him to dig in and stay alive. He will always spawn with a small amount of body armor that can be replenished whenever he collects dropped ammo packs from defeated foes. So essentially what that means is that Irish will spawn with armor plates, which I assume will just work similarly to Warzone, where they're just kind of adding a bit of extra health on top of your actual health, and as you can imagine, this has caused quite a stir within the community. Technically speaking, this means Irish will possibly have more health than any of the other specialists in the game, or at least most of them anyway, as there's a good chance that Delta, the yet to be confirmed specialist, could also be a bit tankier than the others, just judging by his armor, and in the eyes of most players, that's definitely not how it should be when it comes to specialists. As far as I'm concerned, the specialist absolutely should not change anything to do with the time to kill or the time to death of the game, because that immediately gives those specialists a huge advantage over the other specialists, and the sole focus of the specialist system should be to make each specialist as balanced as possible. Now, obviously each specialist has different gadgets and traits, so there will no doubt be some that are just better than others. That's always going to be the case when one character has different abilities to other characters, but that's not a huge deal when each specialist has the same amount of differences. What I mean by that is that maybe Boris's turret ends up being way more powerful than, say, McKay's grapple hook, but that just comes down to the balancing of those particular gadgets. It's not because Boris has more abilities than McKay does. It simply is just a comparison between the two gadgets. With Irish though, he not only has his specialty gadget, which is the fortification system, but then he also has something that essentially gives him extra health, which directly affects each and every gunfight, because if you can use the same weapon as everyone else but you have more health than them, you're just going to win more gunfights than everyone else unless you are absolutely terrible at the game. Now sure, every specialist does have their gadget and a trait, so it's not like Irish is the only one with a trait, but extra health is like a tangible thing within the game compared to, say, Boris's trait that just makes his turret slightly better when you're close enough to it. That's just much more of a niche effect on the game compared to just always having more health than everyone else. On top of all of that, Irish does actually have two gadgets technically in the deployable cover and the sentinel system, both of which can be used at the same time, and as far as we know right now, no one else in the game can actually have two gadgets, at least not at the same time, so he's really getting an extra gadget and more health compared to everyone else just having one gadget and a much more passive trait. So it is definitely understandable why a few people in the community are slightly worried about Irish from what we know so far, because on paper I'm sure you can see why it seems a little bit overpowered. Now, to play devil's advocate, since I am kind of on the fence right now just because we haven't played the game and it is impossible to talk about balancing without having actually played a single minute, but there are some layers to this that might actually balance it out ever so slightly. If you compare his gadgets to everyone else that we know of so far, I do think that both of them are probably going to be slightly worse than the rest, just because they're fairly one-dimensional and also somewhat niche, in that they're really only useful to place down in one specific area rather than being able to be used on the move. While his deployable cover might end up being useful at times, I personally think that the Surret pistol, auto turret, grapple hook, and the recon drone that we see from the 4 other confirmed specialists all sound much more useful and also much more diverse. I think the sentinel system, which just eliminates any incoming explosives, could end up being really useful for playing the objective and stuff like that, but again, it is a little bit niche and I don't think it is going to be dominant by any means. So the fact that both of those gadgets aren't quite as powerful as the other gadgets in the game, that does at least balance it out ever so slightly. Irish overall just seems like he'll be much more suited for a defensive objective objective playstyle over anything else, and maybe that's why the devs want to make him a little bit tankier to kind of reward the players for playing the objective playstyle or something. It's hard to know why they've gone down that path of giving him extra health, but it is going to be really interesting to see how it pans out, as it has been quite divisive so far from what I've seen on Twitter. I'm curious to know what you guys think about all of this, so leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on it. For me personally, I'm kind of on the fence because it does seem overpowered on paper, but then I just don't want to jump the gun and start complaining too early when we've not even played the game for a single minute yet. So it's definitely an odd situation, but I'm excited to see how it goes and how the devs handle it. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.